You show me all a lot of information here. How do I know whether it's going to work or not?
Okay, well, that's a good question, and you know, quite often you'll go back to people's farm and they'll say, "Did it?" You'll ask them, "Did it work?" And they'll say, "Well, I'm pretty sure it worked. My gut feeling is it worked, and it seems to work, and I think the crops are more even." But you know, which is fair enough. You can't go out there and in the past and measure every square inch of a field. But if we come back full circle to your yield mapping now, you've got a very valuable tool there, which is actually going to help you easily quantify what is a success, yield-wise, of my management policy. So here we've got two maps. On the left-hand side, we've got a problem area of a field, the top left-hand corner of a field, yield map done in 2004. We've got a dark red area there, and that's poor yield, okay? We've identified what we think the problem is. Doesn't matter what the problem is. We've undertaken some sort of remedial action, and we want to know, has it worked? With a yield map, quite simple, go back and actually record it, and you can see year on year whether you've actually had an effect on removing the limiting factor controlling yield in that particular part of a field. So we can see by 2009 we seem to have removed most of the, or pretty much all of the red area in the top left-hand corner of the field. And that map, don't forget, that's just turn on and collect the information. There's nothing difficult about that.
I guess I should be looking at a series of maps to see whether the work, whether what I've done has worked over a number of years rather than just one year. I shouldn't be reliant on 1 year. Yeah, so for example, if you think you've got a problem at top left-hand corner, but in actual fact it was just in the dry year and the only problem was moisture supply, you know, and then you record yield the next year, which was a wet year, you can't really look at that 1 year in isolation. What you need to do is, you know, because obviously it's the weather which has caused the difference, not something that you've done. Yeah. If you look at 2 or 3 years in a row, you can then say, yeah, I think we've got this nailed now because I've got consistently high yields, whereas I looked at the previous 3 years, my yield maps, and they were they were low. Should I always be looking for a yield map that's got the same colour, or is different colours in this sort of situation?
You shouldn't get colour fixation. No, you're not going to be looking for a completely uniform green yield map. You know, your ultimate goal should be to get the maximum yield potential out of each part of a field. So you can see that although we've removed the red bit, that top left-hand corner in 2009, it's still a little bit yellow, it's still a bit lower than the southern end of the field there. And the reason for that is probably because the yield potential of that particular part of the field is naturally a bit lower. Right. So although we've got it up, you know, and that's a good thing, and we've spotted what the problem was, and we've actually managed to increase the yield in that part of the field. It's not realistic to think that that part of the field is ever going to be as good as the southern part of the field. So it's a case, each part of the field getting the optimum yield rather than 12 tonne a hectare over the whole field. Okay, so
you showed me all sorts of techniques. Do I have to start at one particular point and then do them all in a sequence, or can I sort of duck in and duck out depending on what I think is right at the time?
Right, well, we're getting to a stage now where precision farming is pretty much an all-year-round option. Okay, so we started with the harvesting, gone through the drilling, all the way around the year, back to the harvesting again. So it really all depends on what you're looking at. Things like you may be thinking of changing your combine next year or the year after, so you're going to lay off the yield mapping, so that maybe not be appropriate this year, but you could come in with the nutrient mapping in the autumn and look to go down the variable rate fertiliser application. It may be that you've got already a GPS compatible controller on the spreader that you purchased 3 years ago. EC mapping, we may want to do that at field capacity, so we may think that that's more appropriate to do in the winter, whereas nutrient mapping we could carry on all through the season until crop uptake of P and K increase or K increases in the early spring. The weed mapping and the canopy mapping, or weed mapping in the spring flush and canopy mapping, they're specific to that part of the year. But again, it may be that new sprayer that you've got, that's probably got a more sophisticated box on it. Again, you may think that may mean that your easiest thing to do, you're on liquid nitrogen, so it may be easier to vary your nitrogen with that box. And then you're back to yield mapping again, monitoring your whole the effect of whatever management you've done. So you've got a year-round system, and it may be that certain things might be of a higher priority to you and certain things may be of a lower priority, but you don't have to start at any one point. There's not particularly a natural or compulsory starting point.
Right, I think my first point of call is going to be chatting to my agronomist. I think that's probably where I need to kick off. So I think all that you've explained to me now has been first class. I've now got to go and work out what I want to do and when, and chat to my agronomist and put some sort of strategy together as to what we want to do. So appreciate your time. Thank you very much for coming along today and explaining a little bit more and how I can get more information out of my yield map. So thank you very much indeed, Simon.